Hello, welcome to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Each episode, we bring you a conversation with leaders across the healthcare industry, exploring topics ranging from new treatment techniques and interventions to novel service delivery methods and business models. And now your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab Practice Solutions, a leader in patient engagement and retention strategy. Let's explore the possibilities of a new healthcare.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Better Outcomes Show. I'm your host, Rafi Salazar from Rehab Practice Solutions, but you already heard that on the intro. Well, what do we have on the docket today? Today, I'm digging a little bit back into the archives for an interview that I did at the tail end in the last quarter of 2020 with a guy named John Spencer. Now, he's a pretty interesting dude in the fact that he's been a consultant on both the IT and the management consulting role in healthcare. So he used to do a lot of Medicare business intelligence system integrations in organizations throughout the state of Florida, did some stuff for folks in Canada, and he's consulted with all kinds of clients, including global client relationship management initiatives for even companies like Chrysler in the auto industry. So he's kind of been all over the place. He did some work with Wells Fargo Bank and even stuff with government agencies. So he's, on the consulting side of things, has been all over the place on the management and intelligence and IT side of things, the IT management side of things. And we had a conversation, like I said, several months ago around technology in healthcare, in rehab in particular, a project that he was working on called PT Browser, which was, the idea was to kind of bring all the resources available to clinicians under one roof, if you would. So he's got links to his site, to various courses, webinars. There's a job board on there, a link to clinical evidence for databases and journals. He's got a group that he runs on LinkedIn that kind of brings all those people together to share some of their resources, what's working, what's not working in the field. And he's got links to like podcasts and news in the PT and physical therapy industry. But what we ended up really talking about was the idea of bringing all these resources together. We've talked a little bit about implementing hybrid models of healthcare, about how to shepherd and guide and coach patients through doing or working through an entirely in-clinic or in-person workflow, if you would, of healthcare, to how to kind of guide them along into a hybrid model. And what do you do if patients are having issues with technology, onboarding, and that sort of thing. So I had a really good time having this conversation with John and listening through it again. There's some little nuggets in there that we're going to talk about at the tail end, but hopefully you walk away from this interview with some practical insights about implementing technology in healthcare, about thinking about the way we pull information as clinicians, and that sort of thing. So without any further ado, here's John Spencer from PT Browser. Well, okay. Hey, John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Rafi. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here, and I'm actually delighted to be here. So
that's wonderful to hear. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, and what brought you into kind of the physiotherapy PT space.
Sure. So my background is mainly in IT for many, many years. I started off as a coder way back when, and I realized quite early that I have a passion for working with people rather than computers. So very quickly I went into training and development. And so I got into skills training, leadership, management training, that type of thing. So I did that for a number of years in a corporate setting, and then I went off by myself as an independent consultant and entrepreneur, and kept doing that type of thing, running seminars around North America. And I did that for about a dozen years. Then I dropped back into the corporate world, and I joined a company called Unisys, which is an international corporation, and really ran part of the consulting practice there, and did some large-scale client relationship, executive information system type of solutions. I did one for the state of Hawaii, one for Florida, and did that for a number of years. And then I went into Oracle, which is a very, very large corporation. They have about $35 billion in sales last year. And I was part of their senior management team, and worked strictly on the strategy, how to take on the competition. So I did that for a few years, and then back in as an entrepreneur, as an independent consultant, and right now I'm focused purely on PT Browser, which is a very exciting endeavor for myself.
Yeah. So all of that consulting that you were doing prior to this, it looks like it was all management consulting and training. So I'm guessing like leadership training and stuff, or were you doing like operations and the whole
No,
nine yards?
it was soft skills type of thing. So it was leadership and service excellence programs that put in for large corporations. So I had the pleasure of dealing with a lot of different industries, including healthcare, as mentioned. So it gave me a great scope in terms of learning from people, learning from my clients, how to make my skills of value to them. So, and it's no different, I don't think, than a physical therapist, having clients and working with them to have better outcomes. So.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big fan of saying, the soft skills are often the hard skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. So I have a co-founder for what we're doing now, and she is a physical therapist. She's her name is Wilma Jelly, and she's just had a terrific career. She headed up the PT department for a large hospital. She's worked also in the university setting, and she's been 12 years or so teaching a master's level course at a university. So she's really a person that's got the domain expertise for what we're doing, and has really guided us every step of the way. So I lean on her as the domain expert, and she leans on me to, in some way, shape, or form, delve into my past and make the PT Browser happen.
Yeah. So then why don't we talk a little bit about PT Browser? Kind of what is it, and then what's your vision for it?
Sure. So actually, we started. This started over a glass of wine on a supper table, actually. So it was. We had a bit of a eureka moment when Wilma and I belonged to the same boat club. We'd known each other for years, her and her husband and my wife, and we were good friends. And we started talking one day about our passion for, I call it the end user, and she called it patients and clients. And we realized that we're both extremely passionate about helping people focus on leveraging knowledge. And so we wanted to see if we couldn't work together and have some kind of synergy. And that was the genesis of PT Browser. And the browser really is, as the name implies, a browser. And our vision basically is to help PTs to be current, connected, and confident, as we say. So, we're leveraging the World Wide Web, as they call it, but we're doing things that Google doesn't do, or Safari, etc. We wanted to make it very, very easy and quick for people to get focused very quickly on what they want to find. I Googled this morning, Rafi, I Googled, courses for PTs online, and I got 63 million hits.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I know. So what do you do with that, right? So we wanted to make it extremely simple and easy, and, as I say, focused for PTs and bring value. One of the biggest challenges that I'm an outsider, frankly, looking in at the world of PT, and I love it. I mean, it's very refreshing to me, and working with Milma, I've had some great insights looking from the outside in. And one of the things that I've seen as I've chatted with people in the PT world is that, they don't have enough hours in the day. So our vision, our goal was to think about how we could create a browser that would help them to get the information they wanted quicker and easier than ever, and all in one spot to help them reach reach their personal goals and reach their professional goals as well, and the goals they have with their clients. So
Yeah.
that was the kind of the way the thought process started.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so as far as like, let's take courses, for example, are you doing anything to curate them, or is there some kind of algorithm or something on the back end doing that? Because when you go to your
No,
site, you can see kind of the providers, right?
correct.
And it just
So
kind of
so
funnels people through to that.
Yeah, so what we are is a conduit, if you will, to some of these courses and other places that are on the web. So we have links in there to courses. We let the providers of those courses make their own pitches, make their own websites, and tell people how they can bring value to them as a provider of those courses. So we have the links to the online courses. We don't have 63 million. We've got, in fact, right now we have about 11 course providers on there. We're going to grow. We've been doing this for about 12 weeks now, so we're pretty excited about the response so far. So we don't provide the courses. We are a facilitator, if you will, in terms of helping people find things very quickly that they can then, research themselves and discover some things for themselves.
All right, cool. And then I'm assuming at some point, are you going to have some sort of user feedback capability or something like that? So maybe somebody can come in to the browser and say, "Oh, I took this course at this provider and it was wonderful," or, "This course kind of stunk. Don't don't take
Yeah,
it."
yeah. I mean, we're not letting people make comments to that right now, except we do have a forum set up where they are more than welcome to comment on things back and forth and engage with each other. But we're not reviewing courses, and I think it would be folly for us to let people review courses and just put it out there.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot of negativity out there, as we all know, on the web right now. And so we're trying to let people make their own decisions, maybe try it for themselves. And if they want to use another place to either praise it or not, that's entirely up to them. So we're keeping it very clean, very focused, very close to the chest, if you will, in terms of what we're suggesting is get on there yourself and take a look, and then make your own decision based on your own experiences, as opposed to getting things off the web and a lot of misinformation about this type of things. So we really are a facilitator, if you will, of getting people up and running and looking at things, and there is a forum to engage, as mentioned, and uh, as far as courses go, that's where we're taking a look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me about some of the other features then you've got in the PT browser. It's a web page that you come to, and it's basically got all these tabs, right? You've got insights, podcasts, news. So what's your process for getting stuff onto the site, or for, I don't
Yeah,
even know, vetting it, or making sure that it's
sure.
something you want up there?
Yeah. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. So on the insights, for example, that's more or less a video blog that I put together with Wilma, and we post things that we think will be of interest and value to the people who come to our site. I just posted one the other day on LeBron James, and his PT taking care of him, and his exercise for recovery. And he's, obviously he's doing very well because he just set a
Yeah.
record. So that's the type of thing we want to share with people. And there's things on there of a lighter nature. There's a gentleman on there that looks at physical therapy from the lighter side, which is great. And they also have some very serious things, looking at collaboration and interprofessional collaboration, and et cetera, et cetera. So we think, browse the web for our clients, which are the users of PT Browser. And we take a look at finding things that we think will be of interest to them, specifically to clinicians. Could be running a clinic, could be how to run a clinic, all kinds of things that we think will provide value. And we have a news tab on there, so people can click on the news tab. We've got people are very busy, and that's really the way they're now finding news, rather than a lot of television. They're going right there and finding the news right on the web. And so we facilitate that as well. So we have a general newscast. And then we have all the associations, the major associations, APTA, uh, and the Canadian Physiotherapy Association, the Australian Physiotherapy Association. They can look at that, see what kind of things are happening there, click into their news. Everything's one click away. We have a map, United States, for example, with all the states, and all they do is click on a state and see what's happening. And we found that, especially with COVID these days, that people can look at the various chapters of APTA and see what they're doing and pick up some ideas and see what's newsworthy connected to those folks. So it's meant to be very easy and intuitive to navigate, and that's kind of the way we set it up. We have podcasts such as we're on now, the Better Outcomes Show. So, people can take a listen to Rafi and what you're talking about, and tune in and get educated in some way, shape, or fashion, depending on what the topic is. We've got online courses, as you mentioned. We've got evidence sources. We've got databases in there. Again, one click away. A lot of people, as you know, Raf, and a lot of the PTs know, people are coming to clinics these days or seeing a physical therapist, and they've already been on the web, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're already looking at it. They've got that in their hip pocket and waiting for them. And so we want to have evidence-based information out there. So we've got the databases and the journals, open journals, that people can go to very quickly, search those journals and databases, and make sure that they've got the latest and greatest information to help their clients. There's a lot of misinformation out there on physical therapy, as people know, and they're self-diagnosing, and then they're coming in with a treatment recommendation from themselves that they got off the web. So. And then we have I don't want to, we have jobs. We have a number of different job boards on there that people can go to. This is going to be very helpful for students, for example, maybe a little more mobile than other folks right now, and where they want to work. And then we have a virtual trade show, which basically showcases a lot of services and products that are out there to help clinicians and clinics and hospitals and where they can go and search it out. So it's a virtual trade show, as we know with COVID.
Yeah, everything's virtual, right?
Yeah, everything's virtual. That's right. And a lot of these places have been shut down, the conferences and that type of thing. So here's a place where they can browse, and that's why we call it the browser. But we've tried to make it as intuitive as possible. So that at a 90,000 foot level is what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And then I guess your vision for this whole thing is that by having it all in one place makes it easier for, let's say, a day-to-day clinician who's, seeing 10 patients a day and doesn't really have time to go search all these, search for all the CEUs or search for these databases to find an article to base some decisions on, right? It's all in one place for them.
Correct. So, and you use the word decision. So it's, what are the options? It's making an informed or a knowledge-based decision and finding that information that's going to help them as quickly as possible and helping them through it. I keep saying it's very intuitive. We've got, like 7 or 8 tabs up there, and people can just get on, spend 10 minutes on there or an hour or 2 hours, depending on what kind of things they want to get into. I just to relate a story about, I've been an advocate for the end users my entire career, and I love making things happen for them. When I did the executive information system for the state of Florida, the executives, they were overwhelmed by the amount of information they had, and it's the same with PTs. There's just a plethora of information out there. And I look at this also as a bit of an executive information system, if you will, for PTs. We roll things up for them, and they can take a look at it and get rid of all the noise that's out there and get some clarity on what they're trying to accomplish with their particular patients or clients.
Yeah. So then so I guess the end user for you would be the PTs, right? So what are you doing to rein them in? Because I'm assuming something like this, it's relatively new on the interweb space, takes a little bit of work to get some traffic to, right?
Yes, it is, and that's okay. I'm used to that. That's been part of my paradigm, if you will, for many years as working as an independent, just as if people with their own clinics, they have to reach out to people. So I'm starting to get a lot of positive feedback from students, professors, places like that. We've got people in Australia reaching out to us. A PT in New Zealand reached out to me today. We're just starting out, and right now I'm on LinkedIn. I have a number of over 6,000 connections on LinkedIn. So that's one of the mediums that we're using, and we've got some other things that we're going to put in the works. We're putting together a video, which we hope will be successful as well. But it all gets back to having the content in there that people want. Content is king, as they say. You would know that in your business as well, and that's the type of thing we're trying to provide is some extra valuable content that can be looked at very, very quickly. And let me relate a story to you about the ease of navigation and navigating around something like this. Many years ago, I got my private pilot's license, and part of getting that license was going on a 300-mile journey and dropping in a couple of airports and then finding your way back. So it was very challenging back then because we didn't have GPS in the cockpits. And so you used a map, and when you're flying around at 5,000 feet, very quickly you lose sight of the railroad track or sight of the main highway. They send you off to an airport that's in the middle of nowhere. And my flight instructor said, John, let me make it really simple for you to navigate. When you get lost, you find a water tower at the nearest town, and you go to that water tower, and it'll have the name of the town on it. So of course I got lost. I went to the nearest town, and then I could reorient myself back on my flight plan. And it's the same thing with people navigating on websites. Some of them are so overwhelming, and it's very easy for the designers and the developers to start to work with all the bells and whistles that are out there these days. And so we try and keep it simple. We try and help people navigate so that the PTs aren't overwhelmed with all this information overload, and they can get the information that they want from our resource center very, very quickly, and it's focused information. So, that's been part of what we've been trying to accomplish. We think it's pretty unique, but we recognize that I have a saying, Rafi, that nothing improves without change. And so we're constantly trying to change it and get some feedback, as you said, from folks. And nothing improves without change for clinics, for clinicians, and quite frankly for patients as well. If they don't want to change their habits and their behavior, then they're going to have some problem situations. So that's what we're trying to do as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of. I think I actually wrote an article about this a while back on behavioral change and how important it is for clinicians to be aware of, what it takes to get somebody from, okay, I think I want to make some kind of health or lifestyle change, to, okay, this is going to be part of my daily life, right? So it's the same thing with clinicians, right? Like we want clinicians, and clinicians inherently want to do good by their patients. They want their patients to get better. They want to see the better outcomes.
Absolutely.
So now you're trying to figure out how to take them from that desire, and now they're aware of a change they want to make, all the way through to implementing the change, right?
You bet. And now we're even more challenged, or physical therapists are more challenged because we've got the hybrid model coming along, which is adding a whole other dimension to how people are affected by change. So you've got video calls and tele-rehab, of course. And when the new normal, I believe from what I've read and from what people are telling me, and that, this hybrid model is going to be here to stay. And so there's a whole other dimension related to technology for the clients to deal with, or the patients to deal with, on top of, looking at some of the ways to assess them, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a whole different world out there. It's a different paradigm. I have a saying that I think it relates to PTs, which is 10% video, 90% physio. 10% video, 90% physio. And it really says, make sure you don't get caught up in all the technology, all the exercise programs that are out there and all this, because you have to really get back to basics with some of these people and make sure that they don't get hung up on what's the problem with the audio and the video and things like that, and really get back to the physio part of it. So it's a whole other dimension for clients to deal with, but I think people have to be strategic about it and think about how they want to use it in the future as well, how they want to implement some of these technologies in the future to make it easier for people instead of being an obstacle to their treatment.
Yeah, it's true. I like technology and I like all that, but I do agree that at the basic fundamental service delivery, healthcare is a human experience, and we can never forget that. Can't let the
Correct.
technology get in the way of the person, right?
Absolutely. And when they're looking at you on a screen, it's, as you say, it's very different than the one-on-one. So I think this hybrid model is going to play out in the future in terms of helping people modify the behavior. When they're looking at people on the screen, they have to show that they're listening. They have to show that they're attentive and interactive, responding verbally. It's a lot easier looking at the nuances with a patient in front of you. And I've been a patient. I've had a bad back, so I get it. And some of the nuances when you're looking at people's behaviors are different and picked up differently vis-a-vis a screen versus one-on-one in a clinician's setting. So, being aware of the body language, leaning towards the screen, this type of thing, and these are tips that are out there. We've got I mentioned the insights section. There is a professional in Australia. She's a PT, and she's been doing this virtual rehab for 7 years exclusively.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, it's great. So she's got a lot of great ideas and tips on there, on how to make it successful. And some people I know are just obviously just starting to do this, but people have been doing it and they've done it quite successfully. So she talks about this, being aware of your body language and make sure that your words matter and things like that. I'll give you an example too, Rafi. She says, it's on her video, one of her videos, and she said, when you're asking people where the pain point is, you get them to use a magic marker, get them to use a marker and actually put a dot on their kneecap where it hurts the most, when she's doing an assessment. And, and record and review your televisit with them. And then before you engage with them, the next week or whenever, just revisit that recording, and then it gets you back up to speed, and you can start to engage with the client or the patient right away, knowing where you left off with that particular individual. So, there's a lot of great tips out there, a lot of great insights and information that people can use that is going to help them in their quest to help their patients as well, using technology.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think down the line, I'm part of that. The forum that you have, I would love to see something like that grow to where there's a bunch of people like that have been doing this for years and years and years, and they can pop in and say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, this is some insight I've got from being there and doing that." Right?
Yes, absolutely. We'd love for people to start sharing more and more ideas like that, and they're starting to. We've got some people adding some of their own personal blog type information on there, and it's invaluable for people. There's an old saying, "Never stop learning, because life never stops teaching." And
Oh, I like that.
and so if we can share information with each other on a professional basis, what a great opportunity that technology has given us these days with the web and the cloud and things like that. It's absolutely fantastic. I've been waiting all my life for this. It's like technology has finally caught up with someone that has been looking to find a way to help people and make a difference. And here we go. It's out there, and to me, it's very, very exciting for everybody involved with this type of thing. and it's part of getting fresh ideas and embracing change and you know, clinicians are no different than any of us. It's difficult sometimes to engage with the technology because it's sometimes very frustrating. It doesn't work every time. One of the tips that PT in Australia said was, make sure that if you lose your sound or you lose your connection, you don't get into telephone tag. Like, who's going to call who? So set that type of thing up ahead of time. Send them something in an email and letting them know how you're going to handle those challenging situations from time to time.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, John, thanks for being on the show. If there's maybe one or two big takeaways that you'd want listeners to walk away from, what would they be?
I think that basically they should be as present as much as possible in terms of when they're face to face with people using video conferencing or tele-rehab, that they have to be very sensitive to the fact that people are sometimes a little intimidated by the technology. They should stay positive about the technology as well. And something, Rafi, one other thing I learned at First Aid many years ago was to reassure the patient. So here we go again. So I think it's important that they reassure the patient when they're having problems with technology or whatever. Hey, it's okay. Take your time. We're going to work through this together. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I like to leave with people is it's all about we. And the more they can use that we word in there rather than I and you, they're going to have a more successful practice, I believe. So I want to thank you very much for your thoughtful questions as well on this podcast, Rafi. And quite frankly, I think you're providing a wonderful service to the professionals who tune in, and I want to thank them and your listeners for taking the time to listen to this. And I do hope some of these ideas are of value, and that you and they all stay safe. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for taking your time to come and share with us. Where can people find you? Find PT Browser. Find out what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, all they do is put in ptbrowser.com, all one word, ptbrowser.com, and there we are. And that'll be just great.
All righty. Thanks, John.
Thank you so much. You take care.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with John Spencer about all kinds of things. We talked about PT Browser and that project and bringing all of the resources available to clinicians into one place. But one of the things that I really like having conversations with folks about is this idea of implementing technology in healthcare. It's been one of those recurring themes on the show. We had Ian Opal on the show a little bit ago to talk about how to get therapists and clinicians to adopt new technologies in rehab. We've had some folks on the show talking about integrating telehealth into their daily practice. And as we move more and more into the 21st century, if you would, the idea of hybrid being the core component of healthcare really should not be that far of an extension of where we are now. I mean, how many places do you go to receive customer support, for example, for a cell phone service, or even to pay your water bill or your power bill? Like, that can be done entirely online. And there's no reason that moving a lot of the communication and interaction between clinicians and patients can be online for the simple purpose of increasing access. I mean, obviously, there are some things, and I've talked about it before, I've written about it on the site, there are some things that can never replace in-person communications and interactions. I mean, when you're talking about micro-expressions and the building of therapeutic trust and rapport, like, all of that is super, super important. But the idea of it being an either or, I think, really needs to go the way of the dodo. Like, healthcare is not going to be in the future, either you go through a virtual path to care or you go to an in-clinic, in-person path to care. It is very much going to be just a different tool in the toolbox, if you would. And it can be done entirely patient-centered for that specific individual and their needs and circumstances. I gave a webinar recently on doing telehealth right. And the main point that I wanted to drive home through that webinar was that the idea of hybrid care should be at the forefront of your mind, and not because of the practical implications of cost reduction and increased access, but really about the ability of clinicians and organizations to begin tailoring, to better tailor the care and the plans of care that they're providing to patients, to those specific and unique patients in their own circumstances. So it's no longer, it allows for one extra layer, if you would, of specialization or individualization of a healthcare plan, because now instead of falling into this model where you only have in-clinic appointments or you only have virtual appointments or whatever, that you're able to kind of pick and choose, mix and match whatever works for that patient in that time. I'm thinking, just practically speaking, we've, from a visit recapture standpoint, so let's say a patient cancels because they're out of town or because they're on the other side of the city or whatever, and they can't make it into their appointment that day, offering some sort of telehealth visit or e-visit or virtual service delivery might be able to, one, recapture the lost revenue for the healthcare provider, but also make sure that the patient and that client doesn't miss the opportunity or the value they would have received or the treatment and services they would have received in the clinic. Again, you might not be able to replicate it, at a one-on-one level, but you are going to be able to offer that patient something to make sure that they're not going without, right? If the option is be there or you miss it, well, having the ability to reach out via some sort of virtual service delivery method is all that much more effective because it's another touch point, right? You're making sure that the patient, again, is not going without. And just thinking back about what John and I had a conversation about, he really talked about implementing technologies in healthcare and really focusing on that we versus I and you piece, right? Which again, the goal of healthcare should be empowerment. It should be self-management in the long term. And I've talked about this on that webinar. You can go to rehabupracticesolutions.com, click on webinars and courses, and there's a webinar called Do Telehealth Right. And I talked about it a lot, but there's a lot more research out there coming out that shows that if the core component of any kind of healthcare treatment is active treatments with the long-term focus of self-management, you get better long-term outcomes than passive treatments or treatment programs and approaches where the patient is a passive recipient of the healthcare services as opposed to an active participant. And one thing John said was, like, we really need to begin as an industry, as a professions, to start moving away from this whole idea of I and you to the idea of we. We are going to do this. We are going to help you reach these goals, and this is how we're going to do it. These are the tools we're going to implement. These are the strategies we're going to implement. This might be the technology or the service delivery method we're going to use. But again, changing that focus from an I and you to a we, because that changes the focus of healthcare. It makes it very much a self-management, an empowerment approach. And I mentioned this a little bit on the webinar. I keep plugging it. I'm not doing that on purpose, but I mentioned it a little bit on the webinar, was that it fundamentally changes the relationship that you have with your patient. So no longer are you a Mr. Fix-It, if you would. We've all had those patients, especially in the physical medicine space. They come in and I've got a sore muscle here and I need you to stretch it or massage it or do whatever, and then I'll feel better and I'll go home and come back next week and I still have a sore spot on my shoulder that I need you to massage or stretch or whatever it is. Like, that does not bode well for long-term outcomes. But changing the focus to, okay, we might use some of these passive techniques at the beginning, but then we're going to begin removing some of those scaffolds, if you would, if you're talking about building a scaffold of safety around a patient with chronic pain. And the long-term goal is for that scaffolding to be entirely removed, for that patient to be able to manage their care on their own, to be able to participate in the important things that they want to participate in without the pain, or at least have the tools and strategies to manage it when it comes along. It changes the relationship that you have with your patient from that of a transactional level where I, the patient, have something wrong, you do something to me or for me, and I feel better and go away, to really a relationship based off of almost coaching or encouragement and empowerment. I keep using the word empowerment, but that idea that you're now a trusted advisor, you're a mentor, you're a healthcare guide, if you would, that's helping this patient overcome whatever limitation, whatever pain, whatever diagnosis is on their own by giving them the appropriate strategies and tools and techniques that they need to implement in their own life to manage it on their own without you. I mean, the ultimate goal is that we work ourselves out of a job as clinicians, right? I mean, there's more people that are in pain and that are experiencing some sort of dysfunction than we could ever meet in our clinic alone. I mean, I think the last time the statistics were put out, this is going to be primarily for physical medicine, for physical and occupational therapy, but there are tens of millions of people experiencing chronic pain every day in the United States alone, and only 10 to 11% of them are referred to or seek out PT or OT services. So that means 89, 90% of people experiencing chronic pain are not receiving anything. They're not getting any benefit of treatment. And the idea that we work ourselves out of a job is a good thing, because it means over time we're going to work our way through that population, right? And there's always going to be more people that are in pain, and there will always be a job for us. But our goal should be not to create dependence upon us or upon a healthcare system or even upon a treatment technique, but to build in our patients the ability to manage it on their own, so that when they have a problem or a flare-up, whatever down the line, they don't need to seek out services, that they're equipped to manage it. And then you never know, they might reach out to you again down the road if they have another issue, or if they end up wanting to make some sort of lifestyle change and move into the preventative care, right? Lifestyle alteration and healthy lifestyle creation. So anyways, those are my thoughts on that. If you like what we're doing here, head on over to iTunes, give us a rating and review at The Better Outcomes Show. It helps people find us. It helps us spread the message. And if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do and how we help healthcare organizations increase caseload, but more importantly, improve patient retention and increase the number of course of care completions that you have at your clinic, you can head on over to www.rehabupracticesolutions.com. That's rehab, the letter U, practicesolutions.com. Until the next time, guys, be safe, be healthy. I will talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the Better Outcomes Show, where we explore the possibilities of a new healthcare. Our hope is that you walk away from each episode informed, equipped, and empowered to push the boundaries in your own practice or business. We want to give you the tools to help you build strong, long-lasting relationships with your patients and clients, helping meet their goals, improve their health, and achieve better outcomes. Learn more at www.rehabupracticesolutions.com. We'll catch you on the next episode.